All right, I think we'll get started. So thank you everyone for attending our Navigating Cross-Border E-commerce webinar with a focus on customer experience and international strategy. We're very excited for today's speaker. We've got Nathaniel Pyron, our International Account Manager at Zonos. Nate, do you mind just going to the second slide? Perfect. Nate has been a part of the Zonos team now for 2 years, helping e-commerce brands such as yourselves optimize their international sales through tax augmentation and localized customer experience. Today's webinar is brought to you by the NetElixir and Zonos partnership, which began in 2022. NetElixir helps brands maximize their online presence through international search and SEO strategies, whereas Zonos offers solutions for checkout across international orders. So essentially, you could say that NetElixir brings customers to your site, and Zonos ensures a seamless checkout for global customers. So before we officially get started, we have just 2 quick poll questions for you, which I'm going to launch right now. So the first one is, what percentage of your target audience is international? Oh, wow, great. We have quite a split. There we go. A couple more. Awesome. And then our second poll question is, there we go. So Nate, we got a good split between target audiences.
All right.
And then our second poll question is, what percentage of sales revenue is from international customers? Just a few more seconds. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much for participating. We're now going to learn a bit more about how to grow your international sales with Nate. So let's get started. Nate, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Sam. So, and thanks everyone for joining. So to give a kind of outline for today, I want to keep things pretty high level and just cover really the basics of what makes international e-commerce different than domestic. So I want to talk about some of the challenges to capitalize on your international site traffic, make sure that the buying experience is just as transparent for your international customers, as well as their delivery, the expectations around delivery and ultimate customer satisfaction. And then what goes into international tax, reconciliation, and duties and what's going to be required at customs. So first, just to preface, I assume you all joined, you understand there's a great opportunity internationally. This is some historical and projections for global e-commerce. Obviously, the internet is becoming more accessible around the world. With social media, people have much higher visibility into products that are available in other parts of the world. And people are becoming more and more confident and comfortable purchasing from retailers not based in their home country. This just shows some of the checkpoints that you're already facing for your domestic customers from the time someone lands on your site to getting them to check out. Obviously, you're spending a lot of money to get them to the site, but there's going to be some added obstacles along the way for international site visitors. All of those can be addressed to bring your international sales to the same metrics as your domestic, but for most merchants we talk to, those are significantly lagging. Here's some data brought by the Canada Post about Canadian shoppers and their experience with US retailers. So in the blue bars, you're going to see things that make them avoid the retailer, and the white, that's going to increase to abandoned carts. And the one so most of these things are pretty much a given on your domestic orders in most cases. But the one that stands out the most is not being able to pay duties and brokerage at checkout. When customers don't know that that's going to be possible, they are very at risk of not going ahead and doing business with you. And that's something we can get to here in a second. So, to recap, to make sure your site is optimized to handle international traffic, you need to have clear indicators from the second they land on your site that you ship to them, that you're familiar with what's going to be required to get the product to their country. You need to convey that to keep them on the site. And then you need to be transparent with your shipping policies and what they can expect around these duties, taxes, and fees. So to start, I wanted to kind of talk about what exactly happens at the border. And this a lot of you might already know this, but so when in a nutshell, when you send a package into another country, your carrier is going to bring that package to the border. The custom agent is going to look at the package, see if there's an HS code, ensure that you have documentation, and they're going to pretty much write a bill based on what they see. And that's really the crux of it all, is that they're writing this bill that no one really knows until it gets to that customs agent's desk. But no matter what, your carrier is going to pay that bill, and then they're going to add some of their own fees on for essentially brokeraging your package. And ultimately, you're going to have to decide who you want your carrier to send this bill to, if that's something you want to have your customers be liable for, or if you want to pay it for them. And we're going to get more into the options there and the ideal practices around that here in a little bit. But first, I just wanted to kind of break down more what to expect for these fees. So the first one is when we take the sum of all of these fees, we call it a landed cost. So obviously your product total, easy. Shipping total is going to be a bit easier, but then you're going to have the separate bill that's going to include usually tax, duties. There's going to be destination fees that are going to often be dependent on the service level and the country it's going to, and then the carrier prepayment fee, which is essentially their brokerage. And to further complicate things, there's going to be taxes applied to each of these line items, not just your product or your shipping. So the first one's duties. Those are going to be determined by the country and will vary significantly by the product in most cases. There's going to be a de minimis value. So every country is going to have a different threshold, which they may or may not collect. So for the same product, they might collect if it's priced at a certain point, whereas they're not if it's below. And they're going to determine the duty rates on an HS code. So HS codes are laid out by the World Trade Organization. The first 6 digits are to identify the type of product that's being sent. And these are going to be universal. So wherever you send to, these 6 digits are going to be the same. And the remaining digits are going to be country specific. So you'll need a code for each product. You can ship without a code in most cases, but what will happen, from our experience, when the customs agent gets the product without a code, they need to quickly ascribe a code. Ultimately, their goal is to make money. You've made their process a little bit higher. So they're going to be more likely to put a code on that product that has a higher duty rate. So it's important to make sure that you have these HS codes for the countries that you're going to ship to not only speed things up, but to make sure you're accessing the correct and best duty rate. And then taxes and VAT, they're more likely to be a flat rate and less likely to vary based on the product type, but they're going to be different for each country. In some countries, they're going to put these on that bill that the carrier is going to bring to you. And in some cases, you're going to be required to remit them yourself, which I can get to. And then there's the import fees, which will be flat fees that they're going to stamp on according to any specific regulation that they might have that doesn't fall within the duties and taxes. So here I want to just give a breakdown. So on the left, you're going to see if you successfully know the tax rate for the country you're shipping to, your product and your shipping cost. There's a lot of these fees that you're not going to be capturing. On the right, you have what it looks like if you do have all of these fees. So you can see it, this is a pretty typical for an order this size. You're going to have a huge discrepancy that either you're throwing at your customer last minute, or that you're going to pay, and is just going to be a variance that's directly eating at your profit margins on the sale. And so a lot of you might be familiar with DDU and DDP, but these are going to be, you're going to put these on one of these on the label to determine how you want to ship. So DDU is delivery duty unpaid. This is essentially an election to have the carrier or customs bill your customer at their doorstep. We do not recommend this for international, but many merchants do, because when they first get started, because it's the easiest. They don't have liability, but there's going to be a lot of cons that come with that. One, the package is going to be more likely to have delays when shipped to DDU. Most importantly, there's going to be a likelihood of abandonment at the customer's door. So the customer is asked to pay these extra fees, even though they've already paid the shipping and the product price. And they're going to be at risk of just saying, no, just keep it. And now you have a product sitting in another country that the customer doesn't want to pay for. Or even if the customer does pay, there's a lot of times they're going to request that back. They're going to ask your support line questions. So you're going to have more tickets. The customer is going to be less likely to shop again, and really just eats up at your CS time. The preferred method is DDP. So the pros here is that they're going to get their shipment sooner. They're not going to have any reason to reject the package. They're going to have a better customer experience, more likely to promote the brand. And then I guess, if you will, if there's any con, though, the reason more merchants don't do this is now the carrier is going to come back to you with a bill that's going to your profit margin. So you're going to need to figure out a good way to estimate those, to try to cover it in the cost of shipping or the price of the product, or whatever you want to do to offset this. So to quickly wrap up kind of where a company like Zonos comes in to help. So we create transparency for shoppers and merchants. We have the trade data and the live data to provide very accurate, complete landed costs that you can collect at checkout. So like I showed earlier, this gives your customers they're going to be much more confident when you see that that's handled. There are not going to be any extra fees to them. They make their full purchase price at checkout, just like a domestic customer would. And then we're going to be able to guarantee our calculations. So if we did undercalculate, we would be liable for any variances there. And to help support that for the shoppers, we also can do some things to help from the time the customer lands on your site, to help them if they want to pay in their preferred internet foreign credit cards. But then obviously, most importantly, it's building the trust and allowing them to accurately prepay the duties and tax. So you can ship DDP. And then obviously for merchants, this is just a huge relief for your finance teams. You don't have tax registration to go through. That will be handled by us in this instance. And you don't have to worry about it eating at the profit margins or any discrepancies. So that was kind of what I wanted to present, but I want to leave the floor open to any questions about international.
Yeah, thanks, Nate. Let's give it a moment for any questions to come in. Okay, here's our first. So do I need to register with each government I want to sell?
In some governments you do. So like for the UK and Europe, you will have to have tax IDs. Some countries like Australia, New Zealand, you will if you sell a certain volume into the country. If you go with, there are going to be solutions to help support that, but you will for some countries. Other countries, they're collecting all of their taxes on the bills they're issuing at the border, and there's no registration required.
Okay. And what about does adding tax at checkout impact sales?
From our experience, most customers or people who are shopping internationally they know to expect some duty and tax. So in seeing that it can be prepaid is, a check in their box. There's going to be instances, of course, adding cost at checkout can impact sales, of course. But from our experience, the pros that outweigh that is the increased lifetime value. When you do collect, you have happier customers. Their lifetime value, they're going to be more likely to buy again, and most of that is going to be offset. So in our experience, sales do better when you can show that can be prepaid without surprises.
Great. We have a question here from Shannon. What is the easiest first step to avoid problems with international tax?
I think shipping DDP is the first. We definitely hear more complaints from customers shipping DDU that are eating enormous cost to have product shipped back to them because the customer refused, or the various customer complaints. It's a nightmare for a lot of customers. So even though by shipping DDP, you're going to be getting hit with unexpected bills yourself, I think that in general, you're going to have a smoother experience by just starting DDP, which you can just let your carriers know you want to start doing that. And it's not a whole lot more than a change on what's going on your labels.
Great. And it looks like this might be our last question. Which carrier is best for international?
All of the express carriers have great international services. I think whoever you prefer with domestic, you can definitely check them out and compare rates. But for the most part, things are going to be pretty competitive and similar. All of the major carriers will allow for you to ship DDP to most anywhere. And then a lot of the non-express carriers have great international services as well. So I think whoever you're most comfortable for your use case, but there's not really any overriding rule on a preferred carrier for international, I think.
Great. Thanks so much, Nate. This was super informative session. I also want to thank everyone for coming today. We'll be sure to share the recording with you all tomorrow. And on the next slide, if you would like to schedule some time with Nate to discuss your international strategy or opportunity, you can reach him directly at nathaniel@zonos.com, which will also share his email with you directly in tomorrow's email along with the webinar.
Perfect. Hope to hear from you soon. And thanks, Sam.
Thank you so much. Bye.